Welcome everybody, it's Raj and Gabby from Relationship Fun and Games.
And Fights Clean Sex Dirty TV.
And we're excited to have you on the show with us tonight. We're going to be talking about how to keep the fights clean during.
Yes, so we're going to be diving into this topic of what to do in the middle of an argument when you're in the heat of it, how to unhook from it, and we have a tip for you. We've got some great strategies from our wonderful guests. We have Candace. Candace, how do you pronounce your last name? Holdorf?
Holdorf, yeah.
Holdorf, okay, got that right. And Adam Gordon. I always see your name in print, but I never call you by your full name. So, but we are delighted to have both of them here today, and we're going to let you know a little bit about them, and then we'll tell you about a little bit more about the topic for tonight's show. But first, we want to hear from the two of them and just get a sense of who they are as a couple. So let me let you know a little bit about their bios and their stories. Raj, you want to go ahead and share the screen so they get the benefit of this really fun picture? As you know, Relationship Fun and Games, we're all about being playful, so I love this picture of them on their wedding day with their double wow there. Raj, you want to jump in here? Or should I? Okay, I've been practicing letting Raj get a word in edgewise, so I'm just checking in. Not plowing through him here. So, Candace, I just love the name of your website, Candace, The Orgasmic Life. Candace, she's both a certified coach and an One Taste Om trainer, and she has been a yoga teacher. I believe she still does that as well. And I love this combination, a woman after my own heart, boldly honest yet compassionate and open-minded. It's just such a gift, so refreshing to have someone be straight and compassionate. Usually people are one or the other, and to get that combination is pretty special, especially when you're doing it, in service of their joy and freedom. Absolutely. Candace also, though she also writes, she has a focus on marriage, eating disorders, and also using the lens of orgasmic living to look at how are you entering womanhood. And she works with women. Do you work with men as well, Candace, or just men? I'm sorry, just women.
I work with all genders.
All genders. Okay, great. Awesome. I know you in the context of your wonderful work with women. And my gosh, the photography and the art that you've done in the series for your book, maybe at some point you'll let us know a little bit about that. Roger, you want to tell them about Adam?
Sure, yeah. So Adam's so excited to have you here today. And let me get that slide up so that people can see all about you. So Adam, he coaches people who want to strengthen and deepen their relationship by helping them communicate better with friends, colleagues, and partners in a way that shifts challenges into greater intimacy and connection. And love that, Adam, because it's so needed in the world. Those very things that separate us and create conflict are the very same things that can bring us closer together. So love that. He's also a graduate of the Transformational Coaching and Leadership Training, certified as a facilitator and course leader by the Circling Institute. And
I love the circling.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be able to fold that in and talk about circling tonight. There's a lot of great wisdom there.
He's also founder and CEO of Oxygen Massage Therapy.
Yeah, it's so great to see someone who creates a career, a business, you're successful, you're doing great out there, and you're living a great life, and you want to give back and share that experience with others. So I love that you have now entered into the coaching realm. Any client out there would be lucky to be working with you because you have managed to create such a wonderful life, the two of you. And I love that when your hearts are filled up, that you just naturally want to give that back to others.
No, absolutely. You can find that. Really wonderful to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, and you can find more out about Adam at adamgordoncoaching.com when we'll give those URLs again at later on in the show tonight.
So welcome to our two guests, and just to get a sense of the two of you, is there anything you want to share with us, either about how you've met or your motto for your relationship? Because you're just such a wonderful couple. We want to just give everyone early on a sense of who you are.
I feel like we came together, just a really wonderful confluence of events in our life that laid a profound ground for our relationship. Candace had just come out of her coaching training. I had just come out of a year of coaching training, and was really deeply committed to doing relationships differently. And funnily enough, when I first met Candace, I did not think she would work out as my life partner. I actually thought she was just going to devastate me. I was immediately
That she was what?
She was going to devastate me.
Oh, you were all ready for the end. You just met her and you were already planning for the end.
Sure that this woman was far too beautiful, intelligent, interesting to settle for someone like me. But she seemed to be hanging out with me a lot, and I was in love. And I had this moment where I had this moment of clarity where I thought, well, I could just break it off and stop seeing her right away and wind up heartbroken, or I could stay with her and kind of commit to just this ride, whatever this is that my heart wants to go on, and then she'll, find someone better and leave me behind, and I'll wind up heartbroken. And I did the algebra, and I was like, well, I'll sign up for the ride at least. If I'm going to wind up heartbroken, I might as well get the show. But it had me, I think, enter the relationship from, if you're familiar with the samurai kind of warrior clan, they would always meditate on their own death before they would go into battle. And they would enter battle being already dead. And in this way, I got to enter this relationship being already destroyed or heartbroken. And for me, it created this ability actually to show up in a way I'd never shown up before. And to be
the worst had already happened in your
exactly.
head. Everything else wasn't so bad compared.
And on my end, like Adam had said, I recently finished, done a few years of really deep personal work, and before that I was married to someone else, and I was with him for 7 years. So I had the marriage experience, and it didn't work out. It wasn't, we were meant to leave part when we were meant to part. So I went in kind of to this relationship just like I was not looking for the one. I was not one of those women like, here's my checklist, I'm gonna do my vision board for my man. I was just like, no, that's not happening. And I think that allowed just a certain level of openness in my communication. So when I knew it was right, and it was pretty quick when I knew, I was able to say, okay, I'm ready to really fully know what it's like to devote my entire being to another person, because I wasn't trying to force anything to happen. I'd had that experience, and so that relaxed openness allowed me to start maybe saying things, like this is what I want from a relationship if we're going to have it. And because I wasn't, committed to him being the one, like I just knew it would be right if he were to go along for the ride. That kind of relaxed openness just up-leveled our ability to relate and to communicate. And I guess we'll talk a little bit more about that in a bit.
Yeah, up-leveling communication, no matter where we go in our relationships, that's always a score. Yeah. Raj and I are always looking to how can we lower the threshold of what's acceptable before we actually take action. Mm-hmm. When you just start to get the little tint of a tone of something going on in your relationship, and a lot of people just skip over that, and ultimately then you keep escalating of like what's acceptable. So the communication skills and bringing those early on so you can catch things before they turn into something big is so awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say that's actually a great segue. Let's go ahead and get to our topic, unless there's anything else you guys would like to share before we dive in today.
No, we'll be back in a bit.
All right, great. And do be here for this first part with our tip as well, because we want to hear how this shows up in your relationship as well. But first, especially for those of you who are new to the show, let's let you know about our format.
So, as you may or may not know, we divide our content into how to keep the fights clean and the sex of dirty. And we actually got that advice from somebody on our wedding day. You might inquire, hey, we've been married a long time. What's your advice? So they said, just keep the fights clean and the sex dirty. Who knew that we were going to be creating a whole program around that advice? And we further separate our content or divide our content into the different phases of when a fight or when arguing occurs, and then also when sex is happening. So we look at before, as it starts, during, and after.
And we use these logos so that when you're looking for content exactly in the topic that's most particular to you, you can find it with really great ease. You can look at a blog and know exactly what topic we're talking about right away. I actually had someone run into us and say, oh, I was in a fight the other day, and I went to the website for Fights Clean During, and I found out how to not want to kill him, is actually what she said. And sometimes I was so amazed that, when someone's in the heat of it, that she actually had the presence of mind to go to her computer. This is why we have the cheat sheet, which is for those that join the Hangout portion and ask and participate later on. We'll get that cheat sheet to them. So you can have a little summary. I literally have this printed out. Just so easy to take a look and see each of these tips summarized into one sentence. But let's look at the tip for tonight.
Yeah, so tonight we're gonna be focusing on how to keep the fights clean during, and the format of the show is that we're gonna share some of our tips, and we're gonna get some of Candace and Adam's awesome tips, and then at around 6:10, you will all be able to jump on the Hangout with us if you want to. And we'll let you know when you can do that. And when the time is right, you click on the little button underneath the video player to join us live in the Hangout and get your questions answered.
And all that means is that you'll go from just watching to actually being on the show yourself as well. And you can go ahead and join. You don't have to have your video set up if you don't want to. You can set it so that it's hidden. And you can also ask questions in the comments as we go throughout this. So you don't even need to wait till the video is available for you to jump on too. We want to hear what you want to know more about, so let us know. We actually have a moderator watching any of your comments, and we'll try to get your questions answered.
And if you do jump on live with us when the time comes, we'll give you our cheat sheet for how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty, as Gabby mentioned earlier.
Yes.
All right, let's
So tonight, Rajan, our tip for how to keep the fights clean during. So you're in an argument, you're in the middle of it. Oh, sorry, Raj has just pointed out, yeah, we want to tell you about the tips from the past. So before we dive into this one particular tip, if this topic is of importance to you, you can look at seasons 1 through 3. So we had how to tame triggers and unhook even in the heat of it, how to end an argument in an instant, and how to handle a heated argument. And those are all with different interviewees, so you can go back and take a look at those. And you can also go and check out the blog, again mentioning that symbol. If you look for the, if it's the fights clean, then it's got the halo, and if it's got the horns, then you know it's for the sex dirty. So you can just take a peek there. But tonight's tip
is called Stop, Shift, Start, and this is one of our favorite.
I think it's our very first.
Tools that we've developed, and this one is like the lifeline when you're in the depths of an argument and you wanna climb your way back out of the argument and get back to some sort of normalcy.
Yeah, it's like calling a pause on the play, but we'll get into that. But you can go ahead, if Sarah, if you would, our moderator, if you copy that URL and put that in the comments. So any of those that want to hold on to that tip, be reminded of this tip later on. We've got it in a short little bite size for you there. Now, Rajna, we came up with this. We were actually in a restaurant bar, it's date night, and we're sitting in this restaurant in Seattle at the time. And we started to get into a fight, and it was like, oh gosh, we worked hard all week, and now we're dressed up for our date. We're not even at the table yet, we're just at the bar, and there goes the whole freaking evening.
So how many people have had that experience?
Yeah,
Right?
Yeah, I see you smiling, Candace. We wanted to make sure that our evening wasn't ruined. And so Raj, I think it was you, he just said, stop, shift, start, and he wrote it on a cocktail napkin. I was like, oh, that's so great. So we're going to let you know what Stop, Shift, Start stands for in just a moment. It's a little shorthand reminder when you're not thinking so clearly, when you're hooked and upset. But first we want to point to kind of the pattern that necessitates needing this tip in the first place.
So again, this is during a fight, and generally what happens is that there's this back and forth push, pulling over something that you're disagreeing on.
Could be a little problem ping pong. You're like, no, you did this, no, you did that, no, you did this, no, you did that. You go back and forth.
And generally, well, sometimes the argument escalates, right? Sometimes we can kind of manage to get things settled down again, but sometimes we really get dug in, and it starts spiraling down and down and down.
Yeah, that's the explode portion. And an explosion looks different for different couples, It could be slamming doors for one. It could be, much more mild, for you. But there's some kind of a lashing out, and very often right after that, there's a retreat. Either one person is overwhelmed and doesn't want to deal with it. That's usually the turtle who kind of pulls their neck in, like, I just need some space. But there's usually some kind of retreat or a breakaway from the argument. And then
generally after retreating, we kind of have this little rest period, and that may even be like some prolonged period, like a week or whatever, and then this
Kinda catch your
very
breath.
same argument will come up again, or some variation, or something that triggers a similar wound from our childhood, and then the whole thing happens again.
Yeah, so you keep having this argument over and over and over again and thinking it's a brand new argument, but really it's not. It's the same argument. So what are you going to do how to pull out of that cycle? Well, it's important to first realize that it's all about trust. You may or may not have heard of Erik Erikson, but he's one of the founding fathers of developmental psychology. And with these different levels, these 8 different levels, you can't move to the next level without having the first one handled. And the first one is trust, mistrust. So if you can't build the skill to not cross any lines and to be able to move, trust your partner that you're going to work through this. And you can pull out of an argument even in the heat of it. If you can't build that trust, then you're ultimately going to have problems, and often people will start walking on eggshells, avoiding having the argument entirely, and then you just become more and more distant.
Yeah, and we like to say that this sort of plaque can build up on your relationship.
Yeah, problem plaque, we call it.
This barrier.
Or what was the other one we were calling it? Rift residue, right? So any of this residue from you have one fight and carry it on into the next. So, but what this is all about is really you want to explore for yourself to evolve what is your ability to draw a line in the sand for yourself, for your own behavior, and when to pull out of an argument. And then you also want to evolve the ability to be the one who you can give up being right. John Gottman, the relationship researcher, says, don't be afraid to be the one who loves more or first. So this is what this tip is helping you to do, is to evolve into those places, to stop an argument, no matter, right in its tracks.
So we're going to get into exactly what Stop Shift Start is here, and I just want to tell a little story to presence the importance of this tool. We've probably all had those moments where it's the last thing that we want to do is be in an argument, but we're so deeply embedded in it, like we have no idea how to get out of it, whether that's on a vacation, a romantic night out, maybe you're on your way to your in-laws.
That's the worst, the fight on the way over to the in-laws.
We actually had almost a loss of our Christmas day this last holiday because we were on the phone with my mom, and I really wanted to say and talk to my mom and connect with my mom. And I had this experience that Gabby was talking the whole time to my mom, and I'm fuming in the background. And
she's my mom. I should be the one talking to her.
And we got really engaged quickly in this, like, the whole day's going to be ruined now. And I called Stop Shift Start, and what it allowed us to do is to quickly dig ourselves out of that and actually have a great Christmas day.
Yeah, it was like a 15-minute blip instead of like a whole downward spiral. But we want to get to all of their great tips, so let's, we also have an action option, so let's tell them what Stop Shift Start means and how to do it.
Great. So
You want me to jump in?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So Stop Shift Start is shorthand. When you're upset, you're not thinking clearly. Literally, the chemistry in your brain blocks you from your creativity. So Raj and I like to have practices or words or shorthand, these habits that we do, these games that we play, if you will, to be able to pull out of an argument just when we need to. So Stop Shift Start, it's essentially shorthand. We've got it up here on the screen. We're committed to having a loving and supportive relationship. I care about your experience and our happiness. I may be hooked right now, still I've got one big toe in our vision over our victimhood. I'm willing to stretch to step into our commitment to our relationship vision. Will you please meet me there? Now, who has the thought to say that, right? And even the shorter version of, hey, let's stop fighting, let's shift out of this default dynamic and start into a more loving dynamic by design. It's just so much easier to say Stop Shift Start. And then Raj and I, we like to make it fun, and we will either pretend to blow a whistle or throw a flag on the play. That's why we used a yellow referee flag, because we'll literally pretend, and actually we do have a referee flag. And we will pull the flag and throw it on the ground to call Stop Shift Start.
sometimes we're that funny. Other times we're like, I call Stop Shift Start.
Now, what's not funny is when someone says, oh, screw Stop Shift Start. That rarely happens, and this is where the trust comes in, that if your beloved has the strength and the courage and the patience and the wherewithal to pause in the middle of an argument and give you the olive branch of peace, you want to make sure you accept it. Because again, that researcher John Gottman has shown that it's not a problem if you fight. It's not even a problem if you fight and nobody apologizes. What's really a problem in a relationship is if you fight, someone apologizes, and the other person doesn't accept the apology. So no matter how small it is, if they're trying to get an apology out and it's not coming well, or in this case it's just stop, shift, start, meet them there. And that's one way that you can build trust.
And if you're not quite ready, you can say, "Give me a moment."
Actually, Raj and I, we have a line for that. When you know not that you're wrong, but you know that, okay, I'm going to take a step towards this, but I'm still mad. My rational mind knows the way to go, but my emotional mind isn't ready there yet. We say, ready, Raj? Wait for it.
It's kind of like the Mel Gibson in, what is that called? Braveheart. Wait for it.
Wait for it. Wait, it's coming. Hold. It's coming. So let's just wrap this up with the action option, because as you know, if you've watched the show before, we always like to leave you with a specific action to take so you can dive into this juicy tip.
Yeah, so let's do our little theme, right?
The little Mission Impossible theme. So because it is an option, this is not a given, but your mission, your action option, should you choose to accept it, is to first sit down with your beloved. If your beloved's not interested, that's fine. You can move forward on your own. But when your beloved's game for playing a game, that's great too. So if you're in a happy and healthy state, when you're in this great place, sit down and write out just 2 or 3 sentences, 2 or 3 agreements about what are those behavioral touchstones, what are those lines in the sand that you both agree to and you want to practice to build trust in your relationship for how you're going to navigate an argument and not lose it.
Okay, and then the second step is to take that which you've written and put it in a place that you can find it. Okay. Post it on a mirror, bathroom, etc. Maybe in your wallet.
I like to put it on my phone, so every time I open my phone, I'll see that reminder.
And put it somewhere where you can see it often. So again, clarifying, Gabby, this is how you commit to having the baseline of your relationship, right? Something that you come back to. You know, when you said, "I want to get back to that thing that we say our relationship is."
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So in the third step, when you start to experience any friction, it starts to build up. You're getting into an argument. Remember the stop, shift, start. Remember those lines in the sand that you said you don't want to cross. And just go ahead, pretend to blow your whistle or pretend to throw your flag or get a real flag. Go ahead and bring some humor, not sarcasm, but some humor, and call to your beloved. I call stop, shift, start. Now you want to make sure you're doing this as a playful invitation so that they say yes. Because again, sarcasm is not humor. It's the spirit with which you invite them to play this game with you that's going to matter, not the words.
Okay, and the fourth and final step is to pull out that thing that you've written that you wanted to do and read it out aloud to each other. And you want to declare and then take one immediate action that steps into that vision that you've created when you were your more sane selves. And like this encapsulates this stop, which means, okay, let's actually put a pause to the argument. Let's shift who we're being and get present to that vision we've created for our relationship. And then let's start. Let's take one step that's in alignment with who we are, who we say our relationship is when we're sane. And that gets you back on track.
So stop, shift, start. And if you want some support in creating what that vision is for yourself and declaring who you are as a couple, you can check out the blog called The Shared Relationship Vision. Just look at the blog section on the website, and there's a search box, search for Shared Relationship Vision. Although, Sarah, if you have that link or can pull that blog up and put it in the comments, that's a great resource for people to create their declaration of who they say they are. Now, we also have our wedding vows, and we'll turn this now over to Candace and Adam, but asking you, I mean, you're married, so you have your wedding vows as well. Do you have any declaration about who you are or how you handle arguments or anything of that nature that you can gauge on and how you're handling your arguments?
Sure. The thing that occurred to me really early in our marriage, actually even before our marriage, was a commitment to trusting this third entity that was the relationship itself.
Yeah. I think, when we first started seeing each other, it kind of occurred to me, I've been in relationships where people put me on a pedestal or something, or I might do the same to someone else. But we're human. We're going to. He's gonna fail. I'm gonna fail. But the relationship, the third entity, the thing that is holding us, that I trust the perfection of that, of however it's unfolding, even when it's uncomfortable, even when we're having a date night and like we're getting into the sex or whatever, and then like, and it gets weird. It's like we didn't have the sex we were supposed to have that we planned tonight, but because I trust that the sex that did occur, maybe the fight that occurred within it, brought us more intimacy, then that's exactly what the relationship needed.
And that's really the key for me is what creates more intimacy.
Yeah.
And just to speak to what you said about giving up being right, and I love that you bring that into your frame. And for us, certainly for me, when we're in a fight, there's kind of three things happening at the same time. There's a lot more, but three main things. There's a point of view that I have as Adam, where I am really invested in the experience that I'm having and being correct. And there's something going on for Candace that he's really invested in. And this is where I really put my attention in the beginning. The relationship itself is moving through something into greater intimacy. And if I keep my focus on that, then I have room for what I'm experiencing and room for what Candace is experiencing, not as opposing expressions, but as a confluence that's creating something new. And that's where I actually get excited. So while I'm getting really scared and tight, I'm also like, something new is about to happen.
Yeah.
This is cool.
Yeah, when there's multiple points of view that are being held as true, then evolution is possible in the relationship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that message, that all of it, like the give up being right, being able to get that perspective of what the relationship needs for increased intimacy. When we're really stuck on that we're right, we're probably not. I mean, from our point of view, we might be, but that's the thing. It's your point of view, and it's not the truth.
And there's space for me to feel right in my rightness in this relationship. Like I'm noticing I want to be really right now. And there's space for that to be true, and there's also deeper truth that we're connected to, which I guess you guys talk about, like that deeper value and stop shift start. It's like, what's the value that we know we're not going to cross, and so there's a deeper value connection that we're committed to.
Yeah, and it's interesting you speak about sort of those repeating issues. That issue comes up again and again and again. And in our experience, certainly in mine, there's a way that you can actually use the fights as an opportunity to fully metabolize that. And it really doesn't come up again. And how that often looks for us is like, I really want to make you wrong, shame you, and hurt your feelings right now. And I'll sit there and say that and feel it and mean it. But I won't be doing it. I'll be expressing it fully, but I won't actually do it. Sometimes I'll even go so far as, I really want to say X from this point of view. It's sort of NVC. I'm not an NVC expert, but I'm fully owning that I have this point of view, may or may not be right. It's what's moving through me. And I can't speak to how it intellectually works out, but it'll reverberate in her. She'll share something. It'll resonate in me. Usually we'll cry at some point. But the magic is when that kind of emotional loop or that circuit gets to be fully expressed, it's done. It's really complete. And I find that I feel more present in our marriage afterwards.
I love that what you're saying just about like speaking it and declaring it. We had another couple on one show, and they said that when they were really mad and they wanted to express how mad they were, they would become a little bit of a character, and they'd say, "Oh, you make me so mad! You make me so mad!" Just to like express that they're mad, but without turning it into words of blame or anything like that, but just to like be in this character of this, oh, I'm so mad,
Totally.
and bring some levity to it. But I also really like the frame you introduced early on, Adam, about does this bring me to greater intimacy. And just that question, does this bring me closer or farther away? I had a health coach once explain to me the biology of your muscles and building muscle, that you are always, always, always either building muscle or losing it. There is no neutral. And it's the same way really in relationships, that you're either building intimacy or you are losing intimacy. It is never a stagnant element. So I love that that's your frame of references. Is this bringing us closer intimacy? May not always be easy or smooth. There might be some bumpy rides and difficult conversations, but is it bringing more intimacy? Love that.
For me, intimacy, when you can't. For me, you can't really talk about intimacy without talking about vulnerability. And there's really nothing more vulnerable than being in love with someone. That person has the ability to make you feel more hurt and rejected and tender than anyone else on the planet. But it's the flip side of the gift of being loved, because that person has the ability to make you feel more affirmed and loved and valued than anyone. That you've given them that power. So of course there's a lot to fight for there. And the other thing is, for me, when we're talking about intimacy, being angry with someone, ironically enough, underneath the aggressive kind of offense that you're playing, that anger sort of wants to play, is the incredible vulnerability of being angry and upset. It feels really ugly on the inside. I don't think most people like the way they look. Like if I took a video of myself being really angry, it would be really hard to watch. So there's a lot of shame and embarrassment that arises with the anger, but conversely, having your partner hold you in anger and playing a game with how you express your anger that allows them to, so they're not feeling blamed and defended, but they can actually be your ally, that the anger is something that's moving through your relationship, creates a tremendous amount of intimacy and safety and trust.
And energy to in the service of, for maybe maybe a jargony word, but like turn on or orgasm or whatever. It's like when someone has that same energy in their body and they're not hooked on a charge in a negative way, it's like this raw animal power. So if you can like learn to play with that and like, okay, well then let me pin your hands down, and let me just fight you like this, then it kind of it can convert. So I think maybe one of the tips we can get to is like sometimes just getting in our bodies, like we're mental. It's like, okay, stop. Like get in your body. Like, what does your body want to do? How does it want to express? Then that's a way to kind of convert that anger and express the anger without the shame, and maybe even convert it into like a turned on electric place.
And I love, Candace, how you're connecting keeping the fights clean and the sex dirty, because they are totally related. And it's so great, but I haven't seen someone quite Bridget of like, hey, let's play with our fight when we're having sex. Like, that's really great. That's really awesome. And speaking of great, Raj, why don't you go ahead and put it on the share the screen of their tips there. So feel free to take this in any direction that you want, and we'll follow your lead. But I know you've brought some great ideas to share with us today.
One other thing I just wanted to presence from what you shared, Adam and Candace, you pointed out two really brilliant things, that moving the energy through you, right? When we get upset and we don't allow the energy to move through us, it gets stuck in us. And there are different ways to move that energy through you. Candace, you were talking about the pinning the arms, and in the sexual realm.
Yeah, pinning down sounds good. What's the word, the woman's word she loves most to hear by surveys with fantasies is not here, but that you hear from women, is they want to be ravaged. So a little hand pinning goes a long way.
I also got some coaching from an energy coach to find sort of a safe way to move that energy. And I will often do like MMX, martial arts video and scream and yell, and I'll just like knock myself out, and really get that energy moving and complete. And the other thing that I just wanted to also presence was this notion of vulnerability, and that the vulnerability is underneath like the blaming, the shaming, being right, all that stuff. And if Gabby's dad, who's an awesome coach, had told me that when you're upset and you get your ick on your partner, like you're blaming them, and then you expect them to actually deal with you. Like, that's not going to work. However, if you share from a vulnerable place, they can get you. They can relate in a heartfelt way, and it's just amazing.
There's benefits to having your dad coaching your husband.
Okay, so we have up here some of your key tips for tonight and how to avoid shaming our partners. You referenced that a little bit earlier.
You want to say more?
Yeah, and I think we wrote these more as bullet points than tips, just, if anyone's reading that.
Sure.
But, yeah, for me, again, it all comes back to vulnerability and
responsibility.
And responsibility. And I think one of the easiest things to do to avoid being vulnerable is to want to be right. And it's a very slippery slope, because as soon as I get invested in wanting to be right, I tend to get angrier. And then if I'm going to give that up, now not only am I wrong about the thing that I was trying to be right about, but I'm wrong about how I've been acting, and it can just go, it can spiral. But leaning into vulnerability is, for me, one of the most powerful ways to avoid getting defended. And if I find that I'm wanting to get defended and shame or blame or hurt or humiliate or do any of those things, rather than even try to not do that or try to censor myself, I'll include it in the conversation. So, this thing, I'm noticing I'm angry, and I'm noticing I really want to make you wrong and embarrass you right now.
Yeah, and notice the words he's using are I feel, I want, these are the things I want to say. So for me, like, avoiding blame and also avoiding name calling, it's not you're a stupid bitch or whatever. It's like, yeah. I feel so angry, and like, what I want to say to you is, if I were to be really raw, can I be really raw? And I'll be like, sure. Be really. He's like, what I would want to say to you is that you're acting like a stupid bitch, or whatever, because we have that trust. But notice he's framing, and I'm always framing everything like, I feel angry, not you're doing this to me, but I'm feeling this way. And that, to me, is where responsibility comes in, and that when you're taking responsibility for your own experience, that's where blame and shame no longer show up in the picture. Or you can create, like I said, like maybe you can create a space for that expression to come, but it's not the truth. It's just a momentary expression.
And what makes this whole engine run, again, is what I said earlier of trusting the relationship expressing itself. And trusting that whatever this fight or conflict is actually something really beautiful expressing itself through the relationship. And when that's happening, I feel incredibly willing and welcome to just lean in and surrender fully. But it is a little bit of a dangerous game to play, because it's sort of an all or nothing game. Because if you get to a point halfway through where you decide to stop being vulnerable, then it won't express itself. Then it will become that kind of a destructive fight energy. Yeah. So the one thing I will say is, once you start down that path of being vulnerable, just be ready to follow it through, to let it fully move through you and be fully expressed.
And that's probably a good key for, like, the during phase of the fight is, like, commit to the vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Like, if you're in the middle of it and you're deciding, okay, I'm going to commit to this now, like, you have to commit. And we trust each other enough at this point in our relationship that, okay, we're committed. That's a core value. And
this is where, like, simple things, and our second point of how to tolerate the discomfort of a fight and stay centered and convert the intensity into turn on. I love what you said earlier, Candace, about getting into your body. You'd be amazed how much breathing will help.
It's like, we'll just stop, we'll look at each other, and it's like, well, like, looking at each other's eyes, and it's like, and it's like, all right.
And I always say to people, you never leave home without it. It's free. You can use as much of it as you want, and it works amazingly well. It's a very underutilized tool, this deep breathing thing.
Oh, yeah.
And it allows me to not only connect to my body, but to reconnect to his system. Because most likely, if the fight is escalated, the way that I operate is I will numb myself. I don't want to feel him. I just want to be right. I want to feel my own aim, my own rightness. And it's like, okay, I have to stop, really feel what's going through me, which is usually hurt. I feel hurt. And then also feel him, feel his, like, whatever his perspective on what made him do or say the thing that maybe hurt me.
Absolutely. And just to kind of speak about relationship as even a spiritual practice, chances are, like spirituality 101, we create a false identity so that we can orient in the world, and we create this sense of I am these 10, 20, 100,000 things. I'm the story of me. Chances are whatever I'm feeling really right about is part of that construct. Mm-hmm. And there's a wonderful way that these conflicts can be an opportunity to melt a little bit more of that false sense of self and have a little more truth come out and actually achieve a little more freedom in a spiritual sense, on the road to enlightenment even. So this is where, I'll notice this part of me wants to be really right. It's actually this chance for this part of me to be reintegrated to the whole and melt.
Yeah, I love that. The things that come up are such deep-rooted parts of our identity, and there's so much survival strategy around keeping them in place.
Yeah, and also melt the old story that I might have that's keeping me from what I want usually, but like, this old story around, for me, I have a lot of stuff around abandonment, like, oh, well, I don't want to intrude myself because then it'll be an imposition on you and you won't want me around. And so here's an opportunity again and again for me to like rewire my brain. Like, that's not true. He likes it when I speak up, and I'm like, no, not in my house. What's on Anyway, and humor is
You're actually blushing a little bit there, I have to say. That's very cute.
big part of like you guys. Like I couldn't be in a relationship if my primary relationship that wasn't founded on humor, on just like in the middle of a fight, looking at each other like, what?
Yeah.
what is this about?
Yeah, I remember once we were having a fight. I don't even remember what we were having a fight about. We were just in the car, and I think I looked at you, I was like, why can't we just catch a break right now? And we both just started laughing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how close beneath the surface there that the laughter is.
It's always available. I mean, there are certainly, you've got to feel into it and use your best judgment. Sometimes it's like people do not want to be joked with. But if it really is a sincere humor, if it is that genuine letting off the steam, it can be really magical. And it's like you can't be angry and laugh at the same time. It's impossible.
I would avoid making fun of your partner in that, but where you yourself or at you yourself plural as a couple usually works really well.
Yeah. But like sometimes I might, just maybe me, I'm a little tender, like to be made fun of if I'm not quite in that space. Maybe like laugh at the situation or who we are, or like.
Or sometimes I'll just get cute, like because there are times when there's just so much emotionality, and I know that Candace doesn't even want to be upset. She's just upset, and we lost you for a second. Are you still there?
Oh.
Okay. Yeah, and so I'll just start doing ridiculously stupid, cute things that are part of our relationship vocabulary. We have an arsenal of really silly inside jokes that most people probably wouldn't understand, but they come in really handy, and they can kind of help to regulate the conversation. Now, conversely, a lot of times I'll really want Candace to express her emotions fully, and I think she'll want me to express my emotions fully, particularly if they're in the air, and there'll be like maybe a couple hours where I can just tell there's a fight that wants to happen, and it's just sitting there, and I'll even check in or try to make room for it, and it's kind of that opposite thing of like wait for it, we're going to need to have a conversation at some point. And in those cases, when she starts to express what's going on for her, it's actually a huge relief for me. For me personally, I just carry a lot of it limbically, but I think any relationship does. The unexpressed anger is way more uncomfortable than the expressed anger.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that anger, I've been, ever since I saw your notes on this one, How to Win a Fight by Losing It, I've been on pins and needles on the edge of my seat. I have one line I've been trying out, but I want to hear your strategy here first before I add to that. But I've just been totally enthralled by this one.
Well, for me, I generally enter fights with the point of view that I'm wrong. Like, and I
That's
really,
awesome.
like, if I'm that worked up about something, chances are I'm believing in something that's not true. You know, if something is able to hook my system that much, which is not to say that I'll cave. Like, there's a wonderful thing to talk about the difference between collapse and surrender. You know, it's not like whatever you say is right, honey.
Exactly. It's not acquiescence.
Yeah.
But it's like I feel
Yeah.
the truth. There's a deeper truth that wants to emerge, and I'm surrendering to that.
Right.
But you still said something, or I still said something that was kind of jerky. Let's be more mindful, or a boundary was crossed. What can we learn about that?
And I'll say that, you know, once, you know, I can get my point of view out on the table, she can get her point of view out on the table. But then for me to just stop what I'm doing and fully get her world, whether I agree with it or not, you know, just play that imaginary game of like, gosh, if I'm you and this happens, this happens, this happens, I get really angry, or I get really hurt, or I get really triggered, or I want to go hide and, like, you know, say sideways things to you to try to get your attention. Yeah, that totally makes sense to me. You know.
And you know, Adam, what I really hear in that is your genuine care and concern. Like, just the fact that you are getting into her world during an argument, that is a huge, huge victory for many couples, to let go of your own perspective for a moment. And you talked about, you know, that the third position, you know, in the relationship, Candace, you, and then the relationship. So to actually not just see the relationship's perspective, but to really want to see your beloved's perspective as well, I think is really huge. Again, John Gottman, he's one of my favorite researchers. He's been doing it 40-some years. But he recently said that that's all what really people want, is they want to be really heard and really gotten, and that the two things that are most important in a relationship are, one, commitment, and two, caring. And so I hear this, the caring, and you want to get into her experience to, one, just it builds intimacy, so you're actually knowing what her experience is, and two, you're empathizing, you really care and want her to have a happy experience. In fact, Raj and I have talked about defining, like, what is winning in your relationship. Is it your way? Is it their way? Or is it your way together? Raj, you want to talk about both is better than one?
Yeah. In just a second, I want to ask you a question, Adam. How do you? So this sounds like some enlightened state where you can move beyond your upset and get into Candace's world and take the relationship's point of view. How do you actually manage yourself to do that? Do you have times where you're just so, like, engaged in your upset that you can't do that? And how do you, like, take on this position of winning the fight by losing it?
Mm-hmm.
Can you speak to that a little bit?
I mean, I guess the blessing and the curse for me is I really hate the feeling that Candace is mad at me. Like, it's my least favorite feeling on earth. So one thing that I just know is that works. From a very practical standpoint, if I want to have her feel more love, getting her world works really well. Now, the real key, though, I mean, I'm being a little cheeky there, though it's true, but the real key to being able to do that is to disconnect the false belief that getting someone's world means that yours is invalidated. So I can still say, like, what I said, like, you'll hide and say sideways things to me. But my experience that you hiding and saying sideways things to me totally screws up my psyche, makes me feel crazy, makes me angry at you, makes me want to hide. That's all still true. But I can still understand why she's doing it. I actually think you could apply this even on a global level to international conflicts. And there's a great video a former CIA agent just posted about how we're making the huge mistake of not understanding our enemies, and you'll never get peace that way.
Right.
As soon as you make someone evil and wrong, particularly if what they're doing is hurting you, it's so tempting. You're just a bad person. Stop doing that. I'm going to destroy you, and then you'll stop destroying me. As opposed to, why are you acting this way towards me?
Because also, Adam, if you do it the way what you were just saying, you end up demonizing your beloved. Once Raj and I, this was years ago, we got in a big fight. He called me, this is before we had an agreement of no name calling, and he called me an ogre bitch. And I just started laughing, and I said, oh, really? Do you want to be right about that? Because where that leaves you is married to an ogre bitch, so I don't think you want to be right about that.
I think going back to the thing about like how to win a fight by losing it, it's really just that thing of being able to go back to vulnerability. So it's really like the first person who gets vulnerable actually, loses the fight and wins at the same time. Mm-hmm. It's like, and the way that that might show up is like we were in a fight on Sunday driving home together from the ranch, and he was driving, and like we were in it, we were really in it, and then he just pulled over to the side, and he looked at me, he goes, I love you. And like that to me was him losing the fight. But it was also, it wasn't just for me, it was for him to reconnect to like, oh right, I love this person. And in that moment, I was still holding on to my anger, so I wasn't able to say it back, but I looked at him and I said, I hear you, I acknowledge that you love me, I'm not able to receive it fully right now. So at the very least, like he knew he was heard. He laid down his rightness. I was able, like I took maybe the olive branch. Like maybe I wasn't, I see your olive branch and I will take it. Can't take it right now, But again.
That was your version of the wait for it, wait for it. Yeah. I'm on my way there. Not quite there yet, but I'm on my way.
He lost the fight, but essentially we won. You lose a fight, but in the end, both people win.
Yeah, and I softened. And you know what? If we're going to make it into an actionable tip, if you're in the middle of a fight and you have enough presence to do this, shift from feeling the anger to feeling the pain of the separation. And if you share that with an I love you, limbically, the effect on your partner, it melts. So while, maybe by saying I love you, I've lost, and I'm not even sure that's true, but I've stopped, just uncompromisingly advocating my point of view. I've actually said that, I love you. I'm not withholding love to win this fight.
Right.
What I've won is connection, and now we're both on the same team a little bit more.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
I've been losing fights. My line lately is to say, I effed up. Like, rather than because usually you're looking, well, I'm wrong here, but I'm right here. And you're focusing on where you're right and where they're being too hard on you and all of those things. And how it just completely can neutralize things. If I just say, I effed up. Yeah. I'll do better next time. Let's work on this together. And it just instantly neutralizes. There's just no tension there to push against because I'm not pushing. I'm like, you're right. I effed up, and how can we do this better? We'll even better at it.
This makes me really want.
And we've got about 7-8 minutes left here, and I know we've got 2 more tips here.
Okay.
Truth is an aphrodisiac, and the art of the withhold.
Got it.
Great. Truth for me, I'll say, truth as an aphrodisiac. Again, it's that feeling of like when you and your partner aren't speaking your truth. Like you'll feel this kind of like weird tension or this weird numbness, and finally when someone says something to you like I've been afraid to ask for this thing because I'm afraid you'll get angry at me. It's like all of a sudden your body like relaxes and you feel again. And again, that feeling, that influx of energy, that aliveness, that to me is turn on. That's and turn on is is an aphrodisiac. It's like and again, aphrodisiac doesn't necessarily have to move into like intercourse or whatever, but it's more just like erotic, alive, connected. Like you trusted me enough to finally say this thing. I can feel my body. I can feel yours. Like so that to me is how the truth can be the biggest aphrodisiac.
Absolutely.
Oh, you just embodied that so well. That was just very hot, Candace, I have to say.
You can see why I do a lot of truth to Candace.
You're right, truth is an aphrodisiac. It's getting hot in here.
Yeah, and I think this kind of dovetails right into the art of the withhold, actually. And this is interesting. I want to talk about something that I still like. I don't think it was a mistake that it happened or that this thing was shared. I'm going to tell this story that happened a couple months ago, and I would say it's one of the most painful and scary fights we've had. And I am quite sure that I could have done it better, but I'm really glad I did. So it was a couple days before Valentine's Day, of course, and I was just riding this really kind of high of feeling connected to Candace, and because my heart was so open, I decided this would be a good time to pull out the big withhold that I'd had for maybe half a year or more, that I had started to feel less attracted and had started to judge her body. And Candace has a history with body issues. So for me, I'd been holding this and been aware that, I love this woman, but I'm having this experience of not loving her body, and aware that she has this history of having body issues and not wanting to trigger that and loving her, and like, how can I have this experience, not be a bad person, but also, hold kind of to this authenticity of, we're honest with each other, particularly where it's in the way of intimacy. So it all came out, it was just and it came out in this funny way of like, I love you so much, and I really want better sex with you, and I just wish I could look at you and feel better about how you look, and like, I really wish that when I looked at this thing, I would like it more, and that I liked your, it was just like, it was breast, butt, and legs, and it was just kind of like bullets to the heart of her sense of being attractive, and I felt terrible, and I could just watch her crumble in front of me, and I instantly regretted sharing it. And I think it took weeks.
Well, it took a couple of days
took, yeah.
for us to at least feel grounded again,
Yeah.
and then it took several weeks afterwards to, because like in the moment of hearing that. So first of all, I just want to talk about the art of a withhold. The withhold isn't about hurting someone. A withhold is about
Absolutely
clearing a lens so that you can be free to see someone clearly. And this had been in the way of him seeing me. And so really, I knew it wasn't about me. I knew it wasn't me. I knew I looked fine. I could see it was just building up in him as some deeper thing. And within a couple of days, we had a really big conversation about choosing turn on. You hear about people choosing to love. Well, I think we have a practice of choosing attractiveness, choosing turn on. In this moment, I'm going to choose to love it. And I love his body. I have no issues, so it's not a big thing for me. But I've also,
that makes me feel great.
But I've also learned that I know that I totally get that attraction ebbs and flows in relationships. It just does. One day you feel this way, another day does so I can roll with that. But yeah, it kind of triggered this old wound in me. But I was present to realize, okay, there's an old wound that's being triggered. It's not about my body and it's not about him. So let me just process that. And then we started to just talk more and more about what is it more that you're wanting? What is it that you actually want? What's the deeper thing underneath this? And really the looks thing became a nothing.
And I would say in our sex,
I like
for me,
you're doing a little bit more of the scratch and sniff on okay, this is what's on the surface it's looking
Right.
like, but what's really underneath. Raj and I will talk about nonviolent communication, and you mentioned NVC before, based on the idea that every quote unquote negative emotion is based on a need that is not being met, and so you're naturally doing that of saying, okay, there's this displeasure, but what's the actual need that's underneath that? Because there's a lot of different ways to getting to that need met.
Totally.
Yeah, and I would just say, for me, withholds, and this one in particular, I think the biggest reason for a withhold in a relationship that you want to remove the withhold or express the withhold is that there's something huge going on that has emotional charge for you, and you're keeping it from your partner. The amount of mental and psychological and sexual energy that is going into keeping that from being expressed is energy that's not going into your connection. It's going inward. And even when
And people can feel that. Even if they don't know what it is, they can feel there's some barrier there, right?
Yeah.
And in that barrier being there, you may not know what it is, but there's something there, and your imagination can always be worse of what's really happening.
And the reason
It's
that
amazing.
we say the art of the withhold is that, timing, how you approach it, how you feel your partner, how you handle the impact on your partner, there's an incredible amount of nuance to it, and it starts out very messy. Practicing withholds can start out incredibly messy.
Right.
But
and you have to be willing to feel your partner as you're giving it
absolutely.
too. It's not just like, yeah, it's like, boom, feel.
Not the emotional vomit.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so glad I got that out.
This wound up for a couple days with, like, you know, her crying, and then me feeling, you know, this is a woman who I love, me feeling how hurt she was by me. But this brings me to kind of the overarching thing. Like, if there's one thing that I can talk about in relationships, it's taking blame out of it, including blaming myself, and realizing I didn't choose to have that experience. Like, I didn't actually sit up and say, I really want to love this woman and judge the crap out of her body and make her feel bad about it. Like, realizing that that's something that's moving through the relationship, it's happening to both of us, which allows me to show up for what I'm doing. And in a way, in the funniest way, by not blaming myself, I can take more responsibility for carrying what I'm carrying and holding her and showing up.
Yeah.
You know.
And speaking of showing up, I just want to acknowledge and thank you both for showing up so authentically and vulnerably today. You know, intimacy is into me, you see, and you've given us some really great insight. You know, you guys are obviously an awesome couple, so it's really comforting for people out there to hear, like, oh yeah, we had a doozy back in February, and this is what we learned from it. So it's just so wonderful to have you. You know, we want to point out to people, if they want to find out more about the Orgasmic Life with Candace and Adam Gordon coaching. They are both coaching individuals. And I think, Adam, you said you work a little bit with couples as well, don't you?
I work with both individuals and couples.
I work with couples as well, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you do? Okay, great. Wonderful, wonderful. Well, I just love that you guys model. You don't just talk about it, but you're modeling this as well. So for those of you watching, the orgasmiclife.com or adamgordoncoaching.com. And Sarah, if you would also take those links and go ahead and just paste them into the comments so people can click those easily. And if you want to know more about relationship fun and games, you can check out our website there. But if this is your first time to the show, we want to offer you our free gift with the Relationship Reset Kit. And that has a little mini email course with our 4 top tips that we'd love to send you.
Actually, before we tell them about those, let's just announce our show for next week.
Oh, okay,
and then I'll get into some of our free gifts and also some offerings that we have upcoming. So next week, we have How to Keep the Sex Dirty During. And we're going to have Sherry Froman and Scooter Wilson.
Yes, the topic is how to steer clear of stale and predictable sexy time every time, because we do not want people just accepting these cliches that the passion's just going to fade. You know, Raj and I say, best ever sexy time is not behind you. We've actually created some practices that pretty much guarantee it just get better and better. And I love what Candace and Adam, you guys said about literally generating your attraction. You're not waiting for it to kind of like, you know, come and, you know, bite you in the butt, but actually being responsible for creating that attraction. It's really awesome. So we'll have more on that topic next week on Wednesday. I believe that's the 29th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific.
Great. And as Gabby was mentioning just a moment ago, our Relationship Reset Kit, this is an awesome information-packed, full of top tips, tools, techniques that will just bring your relationship to a whole new level.
And we want to just get you started, so there's absolutely no cost for that one. You're essentially, it's a free membership, and you'll also get our guidebook on how to keep the fights clean and the sex dirty, which has dozens of some awesome tips laid out in a really easy way to access them. And of course, you can always come to the show live and watch the replays. So if you're interested in those, you can go to relationshipfunandgames.com/get-free-gifts-main. And Sarah, if you'd go ahead and post that in the comments as well. And then 2 other offerings that we have for you. One is our ebook, and we just really like to put together this ebook. I think there's something like 60 pages of, and again, all laid out so that you don't have to read all of it, although it's a great resource to read all of it, but just scroll through and find the topics that are most important to you in your relationship, whether it's fights clean, sex dirty, before, as it starts, during, and after.
And that's $27, and you can find that at this URL here, relationshipfunandgames.com/ebook.
Yes, and I think actually we've lowered the price on that. They've got a better deal on that, so check it out and let us know. But I'm very excited that in just over 3 weeks, we will be starting our course, our online course, which is all about how do you take the conflict and the complaints and turn it into connection and contentment. Exactly what Candace and Adam have been talking about here tonight and modeling so well. I just love the feeling of how you guys are leaning into the challenges, not trying to avoid them. You're like right at the front lines of your relationship and embracing all of the lessons that are available through any conflict or challenges that you may have, or even complaints.
Yeah, if you're looking for how to totally up-level your relationship in both the realms of fights and sex, join the 6-week course. You'll look back and you'll be like, thank God I did that course. There's so much information in here, and
the community, the camaraderie, you know,
Yeah.
I know it's great to get the information and come in one way, but to, you know, while we're doing the course, we've got couples, you know, chatting. We have single people on. We had a married guy whose wife didn't want to do it with him, and a married woman whose husband didn't want to do him, single men, single women. It was really amazing surprise to us to see the cross-section of different people in this course last time. So we love you. We want you to have the most amazing, playful, peaceful, passionate relationship possible. And we're here to make it easier and more fun. Us, along with our awesome interviewees, our guests, Candace and Adam. Thank you guys so much for being here today.
Yeah, awesome show tonight. And again, thank you for being so vulnerable. Like Gabby said, there's definitely a level of comfort. And I see our someone that's joined us holding
Give us
up
a little
their
peace sign there.
peace sign. I don't know if they want to jump in. Peace out.
Peace out. I love it. I love it. Yes, peace to your relationship. Playful, peaceful, passionate relationship. Thank you so much, Candace and Adam.
And Alexandria, who's joined us, if you want our cheat sheet, just email us at the email address shown here, Gabby and Raj at relationshipfunandgames.com, and we'll send that
We'll
right
email
over
it
to
right away. All right, have a great weekend, great week, everyone, and stay being nasty for your sex life.